Well, let's turn our attention now to what's going on in the City of Johannesburg and its fleet. This is vehicles rented by the city from Avis and Afrirent were recalled. The story was that it was due to non-payment, but Councillor Leah Knott, the MMC for Corporate and Shared Services, says it's not true and joins Full View now to tell us why. Councillor, good evening to you and welcome. When you think about what this fleet encompasses, it's quite serious. You've got police vehicles, you've got metro vehicles, and a range of other important vehicles for the city, including City Power and so on. How serious is this from your point of view?
Well, it's very serious, and we raised this at the council meeting on the 27th of October when the speaker at the time, Councillor Makubele, denied the reports coming through to council, stating they weren't urgent. Now, you can understand...
So, hold on, go back to that report. What was that report that you wanted to present, and what was it saying?
So, let me go back a little bit so you can understand the context. So, in 2020, the city was ordered to cancel a contract because it was irregularly awarded. That's the current contract that's in operation. They failed to do that. They failed to remedy it. In 2021, they didn't start the procurements on the new tender. It takes you about a year in government. Is it ideal? Absolutely not, but that's the way it works. So they should have started around January, February 2021 in procurement. They didn't. This contract was due to end at the beginning of, or the end of last year rather, which it did. And we had to deviate in order to extend it because we were only able to start procurements on a new one in the beginning of this current year. So we brought a report to council for public participation because we went on a 5-year contract. The public participation was approved by council. And what happened during the unrest of October in council, as you know, the government was removed and then reinstated through a court order. The public participation had finalised. So they brought this report through, and then Dada Morero, who was instituted as the mayor, signed off the award. When we came back in on the 25th, we realised there are two issues. Firstly, Forensics had launched an investigation on the previous contract, but also on the new one in terms of how it had been awarded. And secondly, one of the applicants on the new contract has taken us to court. They've got a date on the 22nd of November stating that there are issues with the awarding of the contract. So now we have two legal issues. If we had taken that report as is to award the contract, we would have sat with a serious issue if their court application was successful this month. Then we would have had no fleet. So we discussed with the city manager and said, what is the best option here? What's the most legally sound option? We continue with the current contract for a period of no more than 3 months, allow the legal processes to continue. That way we don't have a gap in fleet. We brought that report to council. And the speaker then denied the report, knowing that she had already actually approved, at programming, you basically just approve the titles of a report that comes to council. She'd already approved it on the 19th. But because the recommendation had changed, she decided it wasn't going to come to the next council meeting. So we requested this urgency item, as well as a few others, to be tabled on the 27th of October. And that was the outcome. We then again on the 28th of October asked for it to be set for the 3rd of November council meeting, and we were again told both by the ANC and the speaker that the item was not urgent and should be pushed to the ordinary meeting on the 23rd of November.
Well, in hindsight, it would certainly seem as if it's urgent now, given what's happened, and you will share with us what the ramifications of this move are going to be on service delivery in the city. But the other issue here is you're saying that in the time that Dada Morero was mayor, in making that decision, despite a number of red flags already raised about the awarding of a tender, and in fact a forensic investigation into the previous one, that is hugely problematic and that should not have happened. No,
absolutely, it shouldn't have. There's no legally sound mind that would have said, we've got two legal challenges. Yes, let's award the contract. We may have a risk in 3 months' time where all the fleet is going to be pulled due to a court order. Let's go ahead. Nobody would do that.
I want to also just ask you about the forensic investigations and the findings that were made against certain individuals in the city. Take us into the context of that and its aftermath. Are those individuals still carrying about their business, or are they facing the prospect of prosecution?
So when we came in, there were a number of forensic investigations that had basically been done already in 2019, end of 2019 and in 2020, but none of the recommendations had been implemented. And this is citywide. Understand, when I came into this department, every single core group contract had expired or was about to expire. Procurement hadn't started on any of them. I'm talking photocopiers, fleet, cell phones, travel office, our COID system, which does our occupational and health and injury claims. Nothing. None of them were actually fully operational. So now you sit with this huge task. So we've awarded so long the managed maintenance, which does our maintenance of our fire engines. That put a few fire engines back on the ground. We've also awarded the fire truck contract, which is currently in negotiation, etc. So we were dealt this particular blow. But we've been working quite steadily. We picked up these forensic investigations. We had an immediate meeting with the city manager as well as the forensic department and said, what's outstanding in this department? One of the cases has already been finalised. That is up on appeal. But there are a number that are in the process. There are some officials who are suspended currently. We haven't allowed any of them near any procurement of any kind until those disciplinary cases are finalised. But a lot of them are really in the final stages.
I want to go to, part of the pains of the residents here in the city of Johannesburg are around electricity provision, the damage or the issues around the substations, the lack of water delivery, the problems and the obstacles we see there. A range of different issues, including around policing and the availability of police vehicles. How much is this move, the recalling of this fleet, I think it's some 4,000 vehicles, going to impact service delivery? What can you tell the residents here about how they'll be affected?
Well, to be frank and honest with the residents of Joburg, the biggest impact at the moment is Joburg Water because of the vehicles that they require to take parts to site. So a lot of residents would have seen in the awards that this is impacting them the most. However, having said that, we realise this is extremely critical. So we had to find alternative ways in order to bring the fleet back on. So we have engaged the city manager. The adjudication committee sat on Wednesday night. The city manager signed off on a deviation to extend to extend this current contract. What's happening right at this moment is the negotiation with Avis and Afrirent. Afrirent have agreed that they will not pull their vehicles at all until we finish the negotiation process, and that just really goes around the vehicles that we have in the pricing, etc., based on the contract that we were on. So we are at an advanced stage with that, and we're hoping that we can't get involved in that particular process, but we're hoping to have good news from the city manager very soon.
But you have some issues with the rental company itself. You have some issues with Afrirent.
Avis was the company that started withdrawing their vehicles. But actually, just before I got here, I got off the phone with the department as well as the chief of staff in the mayor's office for the city manager to engage with Avis directly. We didn't manage to meet with them today. They met with Afrirent, and hopefully we'll have that news from them very, very soon.
So there are no issues with Afrirent. I was reading in the stories around this issue that there were some allegations around money for officials in the city in exchange for that contract. But you're saying that's not the case.
Well, there was an allegation, and I think at the time it was sent, and it was never finalised, the investigation. So that one is currently going on. It's in process, and that'll determine whether or not there were any payments made.
But this is just murky stuff, and it is a very tangible example of how politics can really get in the way of delivering services to people. And I want you to talk to us about, and this is part of what you think as well, this kind of cesspool around coalition politics, and some people call it coalition politics.
Yeah. Look, I don't think coalition politics is the issue. We have our, debates and negotiations, and it's a bit of a tough ride because you're not all from the same party. But it's good. It's good to have those discussions so you get to a compromise. The issue we have at the moment is political sabotage, particularly from the ANC side. And they, in essence, forced the situation in conjunction with the Speaker of Council in order to then claim that there's a crisis. And I warned of this on 3 separate occasions, and I said to them, you are not doing what's in the best interests of the city. At programming, I still explained to the ANC in detail, even though we don't debate items at programming. I said, here are the consequences of us not getting or renewing our fleet contract. Here's what is going to happen. And they blatantly said, and you can look at the minutes of that meeting, the recordings, this is not urgent. So I ask you, are we, we're trying our best, but I think that the issue at hand is really the power struggle that's happening on the opposition benches.
Well, we'll give those entities that you mentioned, including the ANC, a right of reply on what we're saying right now. question is, I'm also a City of Joburg resident, what is going to happen to mitigate the effects of this recall?
Yeah. Look, I understand completely. At the moment, I had to take a detour out my road because they're excavating for a giant pipe that needs to come in due to a water burst. So, you know, we're all directly affected. We have as much interest as the next person in getting everything back on track as quickly as possible. And we are working with certain, you know, residents associations, etc., in areas where we can. But the priority at the moment, and it's what I've actually been engaging on since 6 o'clock this morning, is getting the award letters out, getting, you know, the fleet back on track. And I'm very confident, hopefully within the next, I'm hoping hours, but I don't want to say that, that we will have some positive news. It's really just around the negotiation now with the two service providers. We have got an approval to continue with the fleet.
All right, thank you very much for talking to us and giving us a fresh update on developments in the city with regard to this fleet recall. Councillor Leah Knott, the MMC for Corporate and Shared Services in the City of Johannesburg.